My name is Sophia, a 26-year-old woman, and I've been happily married to my husband, Daniel, who is 27 for 5 years. Together, we have a wonderful but sometimes challenging daughter named Eliana, who is 5 years old. Eliana is autistic and nonverbal, which means our daily life revolves around keeping her in a structured routine. This routine is crucial for her well-being because even minor changes can lead to significant meltdowns. Because of this, we have learned to be very careful about how we manage our surroundings, especially when we're away from home. Every summer, Daniel's extended family rents a large beach house for a 3-week vacation. This tradition has been going on for more than 10 years. While it can get quite chaotic, it's something we always look forward to. The beach house has 4 bedrooms, a luxurious master suite, 3 regular bedrooms, and a small room with bunk beds. Daniel's parents usually claim the master suite, and the rest of us take turns drawing straws for the other rooms. This system has worked well over the years, with everyone generally accepting their assigned spaces without much disagreement. However, this year took a turn for the worse. Daniel's older brother, Joseph, who is 31, and his wife, Chloe, who is 29, announced that they were expecting their first child. Chloe is currently 7 months pregnant, and her pregnancy has been quite tough. She has been dealing with severe morning sickness, constant back pain, and just hasn't been feeling herself at all. When Joseph and Chloe arrived at the beach house, they expected to get one of the best rooms without going through the usual straw drawing process. They argued that Chloe needed a comfortable bed because of her pregnancy, and everyone quickly agreed. However, halfway through, Chloe changed her mind and decided to draw straws like everyone else. Daniel and I didn't mind this change. We just wanted to make sure that we had a good room for Eliana. When it was time to draw straws, luck was on our side. Daniel, Eliana, and I ended up with the best regular bedroom. This room came with an ensuite bathroom and a beautiful view of the ocean. It was perfect for us, especially for Eliana. The sound of the waves was soothing for her, and having the bathroom connected to our room meant we didn't have to walk through shared spaces when she needed some quiet time. Joseph and Chloe got the second best room, which, while not as nice as ours, was still quite comfortable. Everything seemed to be settled, but I should have known that with Chloe, nothing is ever simple. To give you a bit of backstory, before I met Daniel, there was a brief romantic history between him and Chloe. They had a fling the summer after they graduated from college, one of those intense but short-lived romances that feel so exciting at the time. They met at a mutual friend's party and were immediately drawn to each other. They spent a few passionate weeks together, but soon realized they were too different to continue the relationship. Daniel was looking for something serious and committed, while Chloe was more carefree and not interested in settling down. They ended things on good terms, but the chemistry they once had was undeniable. Fast forward 7 years. Daniel is now married to me, and Chloe ended up marrying his older brother, Joseph. It's an awkward situation for sure. Joseph isn't exactly what you'd call handsome. He has a balding head and a large belly, but he makes up for it by catering to Chloe's every need. When Daniel and I started dating, Chloe was already part of the family, but there has always been an unspoken tension between us. Chloe seems to act as though she is in some sort of competition with me, almost as if she needs to prove she is better or more desirable. Honestly, I've never been the jealous type, but Chloe's constant need to outdo me has become quite exhausting. I just want to focus on my family and enjoy our vacation without all this added drama. There have been many moments when I've felt uncomfortable in my own skin, but one particular instance stands out clearly. It happened a few years ago during a family Thanksgiving dinner at Daniel's parents' house. As the evening went on, the conversation shifted to our jobs and careers. At that time, I was working as a logo design, and I had just landed a significant new client. This was a huge accomplishment for me, something I was genuinely proud of. Daniel, being the supportive husband he is, excitedly shared the news with everyone at the table. But then Chloe, my sister-in-law, quickly jumped in. She announced that she had just closed a real estate manager deal that earned her twice the commission she had expected. The way she said it, with that smug little smile on her face, made it clear she was not just sharing good news. She was trying to overshadow my achievement. It might have seemed like a small thing, but it was just one of many times when Chloe seemed determined to remind me that she was always ahead of me in some way. I tried not to dwell on it, especially since I had to spend time with her in the same house. Later that evening, when Daniel and I arrived at our room, things started off well. We unpacked our bags, settled in, and began to relax. Our daughter, Eliana, adapted to the new environment surprisingly well. She loved looking out the window and watching the waves crash on the shore. Daniel and I felt relieved because Eliana's happiness and comfort are always our top priorities. However, during dinner on the first night, the mood shifted. Chloe began to voice her complaints about their room. She said the mattress was too hard, the room was too close to the street, and the noise from outside was keeping her awake. She also mentioned that the mosquito issue was unbearable because she couldn't open the windows. At first, we all listened sympathetically, but then Joseph, her husband, suggested that Daniel and I should switch rooms with them to make Chloe more comfortable. I was taken aback. It wasn't just the request that surprised me. It was the way it was presented, as if it was a given that we would immediately agree. I politely declined, explaining that Eliana was already settled in our room and that changing her surroundings could upset her routine. I emphasized how important it was for her to feel secure, especially in a new place. Chloe's reaction was intense and immediate. Her face flushed with anger, and I saw tears start to form in her eyes. She accused me of being selfish and not caring about her pregnancy or the health of her baby. Joseph supported her, insisting that, as a mother, I should understand how crucial it was for Chloe to be comfortable. They both acted as though I was intentionally making things difficult for them when, in reality, I was simply trying to protect my daughter's well-being. Daniel stepped in, trying to mediate by suggesting we could switch rooms halfway through our vacation, but Chloe flatly refused. She insisted that she needed consistency and that moving halfway through would be too stressful for her. The more she spoke, the more I realized that this situation wasn't just about the room, it was about control. Chloe wanted things her way, and she was willing to manipulate everyone around her to get it. I had seen this side of Chloe before, but never so openly. She has always had a knack for turning situations to her advantage, using her emotions to sway others. In the past, I had tried to be understanding and rise above her tactics, but this time it felt different. This time, I felt my frustration bubbling to the surface. I felt a surge of determination. I couldn't back down. This situation was about more than just standing up for myself. It was about defending Eliana, who didn't have the ability to advocate for her own needs. The argument escalated quickly, and Chloe, who had started off in tears, soon transformed her sadness into outright anger. She accused me of being selfish and not caring about family. To my shock, she claimed that I was putting her baby's health at risk by making her sleep in a room she deemed unsuitable. Joseph, who usually tried to keep the peace, was fully on Chloe's side, calling me selfish in front of everyone. It was like a punch in the gut to hear him say that. Daniel's parents, who had been listening quietly up to that point, finally spoke up. They sided with Chloe and urged me to give up the room to maintain harmony within the family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt as if everyone was ganging up on me, completely overlooking the fact that I was simply trying to do what was best for Eliana. I held my ground, firmly reminding them that we had drawn straws fairly to determine who would get which room. Eliana's needs had to come first, and I pointed out that Chloe hadn't complained about the room until she saw that we had the one she wanted. It made me wonder if this was just another one of Chloe's power plays, an attempt to demonstrate that she could still control Daniel even after all these years. That night, the tension in the house was thick and uncomfortable. Daniel and I barely spoke before bed. I could see the conflict in his eyes. He was caught between wanting to support me and not wanting to upset his family. He understood my position but also felt sympathy for Chloe, whose pregnancy had been difficult. He didn't want to add to her stress, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just hormones. This was Chloe using her pregnancy as a way to manipulate the situation to her advantage. The next day, we had planned a family outing to a nearby seaside town. However, the atmosphere was still tense as we piled into the cars, with Chloe giving me the cold shoulder the entire drive. The weight of our argument from the night before hung over us like a storm cloud. Daniel tried to lighten the mood with small talk, but his efforts were met with silence. No one was in the mood to engage. When we arrived at the town, everyone split up to explore. Daniel, Eliana, and I decided to visit the local aquarium, hoping it would be a soothing experience for Eliana. She loved fish, and we thought it might help distract her from the tension at the beach house. To our relief, it worked. Eliana was captivated by the colorful fish swimming gracefully in the tanks. Daniel and I also managed to relax a bit, enjoying the tranquil atmosphere. But our moment of peace didn't last long. We regrouped with the rest of the family for lunch at a seaside restaurant, and that's when things began to spiral downward. Chloe was in full passive-aggressive mode, complaining about everything: the weather, the food, even the seating arrangements. She made a point of loudly expressing how hard it was for her to walk around in her condition, casting pointed looks in my direction, as if to say, "Look at what you're putting me through." Her words were laced with venom but wrapped in a sickly sweet tone that made it hard for anyone to confront her directly. Things escalated further when the waiter brought out the food. Chloe took one look at her plate and wrinkled her nose in disgust. "I can't eat this," she declared, dramatically pushing the plate away. "It's too greasy, and the smell is making me nauseous." "I thought we'd come somewhere that catering assistant to people with special needs," she added, glancing at her belly as if the world should revolve around her pregnancy. In that moment, I had to fight the urge to roll my eyes. If I could have, I would have shown her the true meaning of special needs. Joseph, ever ready to defend his wife, immediately called the waiter over and demanded a new dish, something more suitable for a pregnant woman. The waiter, looking flustered and overwhelmed, apologized and hurried off to make the necessary changes. Meanwhile, Chloe shot me a triumphant look, clearly reveling in the chaos she had created. It was infuriating to witness her behavior, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this entire outing was just another stage for her to perform her manipulations. It felt as if Chloe had won some unspoken battle, and the atmosphere during the meal was thick with tension. Every time someone attempted to shift the conversation to a more neutral topic, Chloe found a way to steer it back to her pregnancy and how challenging everything was for her. It became apparent that she was fully exploiting the situation, trying to make me feel guilty for not giving up my room. After lunch, we all strolled along the boardwalk, but the tension between Chloe and me was palpable. She exaggerated her movements, walking slowly and taking large, dramatic steps. Frequently, she would stop to rest, letting out deep sighs to ensure everyone noticed how exhausted she was. Joseph hovered around her like an overprotective nurse, constantly offering her water, asking if she needed to sit down, and shooting glares at anyone who didn't immediately offer to assist her. Daniel saw my frustration and squeezed my hand, offering a reassuring smile. He understood how difficult it was for me to remain calm in the face of Chloe's continuous jabs, but I could tell he was also concerned about how his family viewed the situation. He didn't want things to escalate any further. I appreciated his support, but a part of me wished he would just stand up to Clea. After all, she was being unreasonable, and her behavior was beginning to wear on everyone's nerves. Back at the beach house, the tension only intensified. Chloe's complaints about her room became a constant hum in the background. She often made offhand comments about her inability to sleep, claiming her back pain was worsening because of the terrible bed. She didn't limit her complaints to Joseph. She made sure her remarks were loud enough for Daniel's parents to hear, painting me as the villain who was making her suffer. Daniel's parents, always the peacemakers, started dropping hints that maybe we should reconsider switching rooms. "It's just for a few days," his mother suggested gently one morning over breakfast. "Chloe is pregnant, dear. She needs a rest. You and Daniel are young. You can handle a little discomfort." I wanted to scream. How could they not see that this was exactly what Chloe wanted? She was manipulating everyone into feeling sorry for her, using her pregnancy to get her way. I knew that giving in now would only set a precedent for future vacations and affect our entire relationship. If I gave up my room this time, what would Chloe demand next? How could I look Eliana in the eye, knowing I had put her needs second to Chloe tantrums? Daniel tried once more to propose a compromise, suggesting that we could switch rooms halfway through the vacation, but Chloe outright rejected it. I need stability, Daniel, she insisted, her voice trembling with false emotion. This isn't just about me. It's about the baby. If I don't get proper rest, it could harm my health and the baby's health. I'm sure your wife understands that, right? Everyone turned to look at me, their eyes filled with expectation. I could feel the weight of their gazes pressing down on me, but I couldn't give in, not when I understood what was really at stake. I stood my ground, repeating that we had drawn straws fairly and that Eliana's needs had to come first. I also reminded them that Chloe had been fine with her room until she realized we had gotten the better one. Chloe stormed off in tears, leaving everyone else to deal with the fallout. Joseph glared at me, muttering something under his breath about how some people just lacked empathy, while Daniel's parents gave me disappointed looks, as if I were the one causing all the trouble. The entire situation felt like it was spiraling out of control, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trapped in a nightmare with no escape. As the days went on, Chloe's behavior only grew more erratic. She started making snide remarks whenever Daniel and I were together, hinting at their past fling in ways that made me uncomfortable. Oh, Daniel, remember when we used to come to places like this? Those were the days, huh? She would laugh, always making sure to say it when Joseph wasn't around, as if she was trying to create a rift between us. One afternoon, we had planned a group outing to a nearby nature reserve, intending it to be a relaxing day filled with hiking and picnicking, something everyone could enjoy together. But with Chloe's unpredictable behavior, I wasn't so sure how it would go. As soon as we arrived at the hiking spot, Chloe began to complain loudly. She insisted that, due to her condition, she couldn't possibly manage a hike. In her view, we were being inconsiderate for dragging her out to take part in such a physically demanding activity. Almost immediately, Daniel's parents offered to stay behind with her, but Chloe was quick to reject their help. I don't want to ruin the day for anyone, she said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You all go ahead. Daniel can stay with me. He mentioned he had a headache earlier, so we can catch up, right, Daniel? I noticed Daniel's expression. He looked torn. He clearly didn't want to leave me alone with Eliana, especially since she had been having a difficult morning. Yet, he also didn't want to upset Chloe. The conflict in his eyes frustrated me. Why was he allowing Chloe to manipulate him like this? Why couldn't he see through her act? It was clear to me that her headache was just an excuse to keep him close. Just as I was about to speak up, Joseph stepped in. No, Daniel, you should go with your wife. I'll stay back with Chloe, he said firmly. The look on Chloe's face was priceless. She clearly hadn't expected Joseph to take a stand like that. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her, but then I remembered how she had been trying to turn Daniel against me, and my sympathy vanished. The hike was beautiful, filled with stunning views and the invigorating scent of nature, but I couldn't fully enjoy it. My mind kept drifting back to Chloe and her behavior. She seemed intent on making this vacation all about her, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more beneath the surface than just pregnancy hormones. Why did Daniel keep giving in to her demands when he could have simply set some boundaries? I couldn't make sense of it. Later that evening, back at the beach house, the truth finally began to surface. We were all gathered in the living room, chatting and watching a particularly emotional episode of a telenovela when Chloe suddenly erupted into tears. Initially, everyone assumed it was just another one of her mood swings, especially since the show was quite sad. Joseph tried to comfort her, but she wouldn't stop crying. Eliana, reacting to the commotion, also started screaming, adding to the chaos. Daniel quickly dug through his pockets and pulled out a lollipop. I smiled, hoping it would calm Eliana down, but instead of giving it to our daughter, Daniel handed it to Chloe. To my surprise, her crying stopped immediately, leaving only Eliana's loud wails. I frowned in disappointment, glancing at Daniel with confusion as I held Eliana close. Chloe then pulled Daniel closer, wrapping her arms around his waist as she sniffled. At first, I thought it was just another manipulation tactic, but then she blurted out something that took us all by surprise. I can't keep this secret anymore, she sobbed. I'm so sorry, Joseph, but the baby, it's not yours. The room fell silent, as if all the air had been sucked out. A heavy stillness enveloped us as Joseph stared at Chloe, his face a mixture of confusion and pain. What do you mean? He asked slowly, almost as if he couldn't bear to believe her words. Taking a deep breath, Chloe whispered, "It's Daniel's." She bowed her head, but I could see a smile on her face. My heart sank. For a moment, I thought I must have misheard her. There was no way she could have said what I thought she just did. Yet, the smile she flashed at me confirmed that she was indeed telling the truth. Daniel looked as stunned as I felt. "What are you talking about, Chloe?" he demanded, his voice rising in anger. "How could the baby possibly be mine?" Chloe quickly switched her expression, gathering tears in her eyes as if she were putting on a show. She explained how, during a rough patch in her marriage with Joseph, she and Daniel had briefly reconnected for just one night. "It was a moment of weakness," she claimed. "I regret it more than anything." My mind raced as I tried to process her words. I felt as if my whole world was crumbling around me. I looked at Daniel, desperately searching his face for some sign that this was all just a terrible misunderstanding. I wanted to believe he would deny her accusations, but all I saw reflected back was shock and disbelief. Joseph's reaction was even more intense. He stood up, his face flushed with rage. "You slept with my brother?" he shouted, his voice shaking with fury. "After everything we've been through. You did this to me?" Daniel remained frozen in place, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, unable to respond as the weight of Chloe's revelation hung heavily in the air. The chaos of the moment swirled around us, leaving each of us grappling with the shocking truth that had just been revealed. I was in a state of disbelief. The expression on Daniel's face spoke volumes, revealing the truth I had dreaded to confront. I knew Chloe wasn't lying. She seemed confident, almost smug. It was clear to me that Chloe didn't regret her actions, yet I felt compelled to ask, "When did this happen?" She smirked and began counting off the days on her fingers. "A rainy night in June," she said. I scrambled to recall where I was at that time, desperately trying to piece together the puzzle. One particular night stood out in my mind, the night Eliana had a major meltdown. It was one of those nights where it felt like everything was falling apart. Eliana was crying so hard that I thought she might suffocate from her tears. I had to rush her to the pediatric unit for help. I remember Daniel saying he was working the overnight shift, and since the rain was pouring down heavily, I told him not to come. Little did I know he was with another woman at that very moment. Before Daniel could explain himself, before he could utter a single word, I slapped Chloe across the face. My anger was uncontrollable, and at that moment, nothing mattered to me except the betrayal I felt. How could she do this to me? To our family? How could he? My vision blurred with rage. Daniel tried to approach me, but I couldn't contain myself. I swung at him, throwing punches, shoving him away, desperate to distance myself from the man I once trusted, the man who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The very woman he had repeatedly assured me I had nothing to worry about was the one with whom he had crossed that line. It felt like a whirlwind of chaos as Daniel's parents got involved, adding another layer of distress to the situation. His mother had the nerve to tell me I was overreacting, insisting I needed to calm down. Overreacting? My husband had just fathered a child with his brother's wife, and I was the one in the wrong. As if that wasn't enough, Daniel's mother went on to say we needed to think about what was best for everyone involved. By everyone, she meant Chloe, the baby, and even Daniel and herself. She had the audacity to suggest that maybe this baby was fate, a solution to our problems because Eliana had been challenging. Did she really just imply that Eliana wasn't normal? Was she justifying this affair, this betrayal, because of our daughter's struggles? My hands trembled in disbelief, and I felt nausea rising in my throat. Finally, Daniel seemed to snap out of his stupor and tried to defend Eliana, but his mother wouldn't relent. She kept insisting we needed to be reasonable and think about the future. I was done. I could not endure another moment of this madness. Grabbing my keys, I headed for the door, pulling Eliana along with me. Daniel attempted to stop me, saying we needed to talk, but what was left to say? He had made his choice the moment he slept with Chloe, and now he had to face the consequences. I stormed out of the beach house, not daring to look back. My hands shook so violently that it took me several attempts to start the car. I drove away, desperate to put as much distance as possible between myself and the wreckage of my marriage. Now, as I sit in a nearby hotel, I find myself on Reddit, pouring my heart out. I'm devastated and seething with anger, but a small part of me wonders if I could have handled everything differently. Am I justified in my reaction, or did I let my emotions get the best of me? Eliana has finally calmed down and is sleeping peacefully, but tomorrow will bring a new set of challenges. I'm left contemplating my next move, feeling like I'm giving Chloe exactly what she wants by leaving Daniel at our home.